Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to Community Talks. Today I'm joined by Jagtar Singh Bassi, former Fire Chief, Bedfordshire. Let's meet Jagtar and find out more about him, about his career, his life journey, and his community service and all the activities that he's involved with now. Jagtar, welcome to SIKH Channel.
Thank you very much, Val, and it's a pleasure once again to be reunited with my favourite SIKH channel. We've done some tremendous work in the past, but to do 25 minutes of my life journey might be a bit challenging.
Absolutely. I know you've achieved a lot in your life, but perhaps we can start off with how and when you came to join the fire service and you progressed to a very senior level. But tell us about the early days.
Well, I joined the fire service in 1961. I came to England in 1961 from Pendin Badala in India, Jalandhar. In 1961, this country was very, very different to what it is now. Racism was rife, skinheads were roaming the streets. Our older people have been here for years, weren't fighting back because this was a foreign country for them. And living in Balsalee was a tough time, but a really enjoyable time. There's also the positive side of that where, nobody locked their doors. People came in and out of doors. People made communal food. In them days, we had one of the first Sikh Gurdwaras also in Birmingham, in Mary Street, which I think is worth a visit sometime in the future because historically it's probably one of the first in the country. What else can I tell you about? I joined the fire service in 1977. I'd got a degree in business studies and I couldn't get a job. 300 applications, nothing. And the fire service was advertising for graduates, and I thought, I'll give it a go. And I joined, and I realised that they really were just looking for people that were able to be a firefighter, not just graduates. And it took me a long time to realise being a graduate wasn't really an advantage. But the journey has been mostly a positive journey. I'm in the process of writing a book at the moment about my journey both in the fire service and now in the NHS. And I reached every rank in the fire service as the first Asian, first Sikh. I don't know who the next Sikh firefighter is that's going to reach many of those ranks. We haven't progressed as fast as we could and should have done in the fire service. But then I retired in 2005 and joined the NHS. And in the NHS, I've had a tremendous career for 15 odd years nearly now, where I've worked in the ambulance service, in an acute hospital, now in a mental health trust. But I'm sure you're going to pick up questions from my journey.
That's tremendous. Thank you very much for that very quick and brief recap. And when you progressed, and you did progress very far, and especially in an area which was not an Asian area. You're in Bedfordshire, again, with a small Asian community compared to where you grew up. And how did you find that? And did you have to adapt? Did you have to really become white in many ways and adopt the local culture to make sure you're accepted, or were you able to keep a lot of your identity?
Well, certainly 24 years I spent in West Midlands Fire Service. So the majority of my career was in South Birmingham. But yes, I was able to keep my identity. But not only was I able to keep my identity, I was able to use my identity to educate my fellow fire officers. And I can remember them all looking forward to when we had a wedding, looking forward to leftover samosas and stuff, when we were having Diwali, looking forward to those foods. Mostly it was food that united us. So that was something firefighters loved. And I remember my wife coming to the stations and cooking the food. And that got me accepted. The other thing that got me accepted in the fire service was I was a reasonable footballer and cricketer. And I played cricket for both the West Midlands Fire Service and the National Fire Service. So that, again, gets you accepted, being one of them. But behind the scenes, there's always people trying to trip you up. Behind the scenes, you're always having to be twice as good as the next candidate to get on. And I didn't let it get me down. There's a phrase that I use that's been coined actually by the Sky Sports called bounce back ability. And that really means you will have disappointments in life. You will not get promoted when you deserve to be promoted. All you've got to do is bear in mind, Kismet and fate will eventually join you, and you'll get what you deserve. It's no good wallowing in, oh, woe is me. You've just got to be positive, move on. You've got to make things easier for the next generation and keep changing the policies, procedures, and strategies. Can I just pause here and just focus on somebody else? My granddaughter came out of university 5 years ago with a degree in psychology and sociology. She's had a totally different journey. Young Asian woman, looks like you and went into marketing, and she's virtually got promoted every year, every 2 years. She's just on a Christmas break with the company, and she's been given an award for being the team player of the year. So I can see the future is brighter for our communities. As Nazir Afzal's report has highlighted in the fire service, the culture still is not right in many organisations. We still need allies, we still need colleagues to stand up when racism or misogyny or gay issues arise. But that is a skill and a competency you get with experience. I think we need our younger people to be skilled. The more people that are not bystanders, the better it will be for the future.
That's tremendous. Thank you very much for that encouragement. Over the decades, uh, the community has made a lot of progress, and yourself being a pioneer, being somebody who's helped to break the barriers for other people coming through now. And if you come to your work now, you've been involved in the NHS, as you said, and you were involved in the pandemic. You helped the communities across the country, both through the SIKH channel and through other charities. You did a lot of good work. And we're now becoming towards the end of the pandemic. What's your view? We're looking forward to a bright future. And the pandemic, it was quite a distressing time for us, but it is largely behind us now.
Well, first of all, Val, you've got to take a lot of credit for this, and Gert Randwell. You gave us a platform to talk about the issues of COVID, the vaccine hesitancy, the reluctance of people to accept that COVID even existed. A small minority of people used COVID as a way of sending out misinformation, fake news. And our communities are well engaged in WhatsApp, and they were really concerned and worried about experimented on, about COVID not being a real issue. And your channel was able to give them the right information, the safety information. Also, through your channel and through other faith communities, we were campaigning together to say, don't put your vaccination centres where our communities can't reach. Put them in the places of worship. And gurdwaras and mosques and churches around the country opened their doors to the NHS, and vaccinations occurred at a much, much faster rate. So we've learned an awful lot during this period. We've learned the most vulnerable of our communities during a pandemic are those that live in the inner cities in certain deprived wards. We need to get information to them quickly. We need to utilise your services of minority, radio and TV to get the message out. We need champions to say this is how to stay safe. A generic message from Boris at number 10 did not work and will not work. We need trusted leaders to be saying, get your vaccination, protect yourself in this way. If you've got these signs and symptoms, stay at home. So there's a lot we've learned, and we'll save a lot more lives in the future. But it's about partnership, isn't it? It's about collaboration. And faith communities, what do? They all have one core value: value in human life, value in each other. Seva is a word that we use in the Sikh way, but many other faiths also do that, but don't have that one precise core aim and core value. But Seva is something wonderful the Sikh community taught me, and something we need to use. If it ever happens again, we are ready. Look what the Sikh community do. You know, the respect the Sikh community have, sending them uh, units over to Ukraine to feed people who've got nothing in connection with sending people to Spanish feed people. So well done to the Sikh community for what you do and how you make me proud of being a Sikh.
And since you retired, Jagtar, Seva Community Service has become a full-time role really for you. You've been extremely busy. You're probably busier now than ever before. And can you tell us what's your motivation? Because you're extremely helpful whenever we need to speak to you from SIKH Channel, get your expertise. You're always on hand, and you help a lot of communities across the country. So, what drives you to keep doing this and not just to simply retire and enjoy your retirement?
I think I can give you three small examples, but that will give everybody encouragement why you should do Seva, why you should support others. You do it because eventually you learn that what you did was powerful and helped somebody. So how can I tell you the story? So when I was in West Midlands from 1993 for 20 years to 2004 and 5, we took teams of firefighters to Romania where there were orphans that were uh, in institutions because they had disabilities, or they were just rejected because the families couldn't support them. And in that 20 years, one young lady who we met, who was about 8 when we first met her, came to the UK, and joined the London Fire Brigade. She's now probably 20 years into her career. What an inspiration to be able to say, my little bit of effort is now resulting in a young lady in London saving lives. We sent firefighters with your support again. If you remember that appeal we did about first aid training in India, in the Gurdwaras in India, they went to Amritsar, they did some training, they then went to Delhi, they then went to Bihar, and I went on a holiday and I went to Amritsar, and with me was Jagtar, my colleague, and he said, "See that guy over there? We trained him." I said, "Stay here." I went up to this Sevadar and I said, "Did you receive first aid training?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Has it been of any use?" And he told me of a story of a tourist who fell over on the marble floor, broke her hip, and how he and another colleague were able to make her safe, get her into an ambulance, and take her away. Those two stories in themselves show that when you do seva, people will benefit. And that benefit you may not see straight away, but eventually a story will come to you that encourages you to do more.
That's tremendous. Thank you very much. That's very inspiring. And we want to encourage others who are still working, perhaps in a professional capacity or in any job, to undertake Seva, to get involved through SIKH Channel or through yourself if they're retired, to join in any of the activities. And how can people get involved? Are you open to people contacting you and assisting you with your current projects?
I think for me now, my role now at 68 is to encourage anybody who wants to do charity work and to give them the tools and the guidance of what they can do and how they can do it, how they can fundraise, how they can organise their committee. It's not to actually do the doing. So recently, my firefighters and paramedics and local community members used my support. They raised £3,000 each, and they went off to India again to do first aid training. In the last year, 2 years ago, when we had the COVID appeal in India, I brought together our South Asian NHS members in a group called Apna NHS, and I would love to invite you to the award on the 13th of January. And we raised £50,000 in our little group. But once again, the learning that we passed on to BAPIO, British Asian Indian Doctors, they raised £250,000. And we also then managed to get sleep apnea machines and ventilators to our community to India. Phenomenal. So sometimes you do a little bit, but others learn from it, do more. Right now, if there's any support your channel can give, we would welcome either raffle prizes or auction prizes for the 13th of January when we are doing our awards for APNA, our NHS, at Warwick University. And the appeal is for the floods in Pakistan. And they're also in Kashmir, India. So the money is going to 5 charities, all governed by this country, all got charity numbers. So all we do is raise our money, put it into this pot, it gets distributed fairly to the 5 charities. And we're hoping to raise 50,000. We've got about 30,000 already raised. So no money passes to us, it goes straight through gift aid. And it's been distributed. So about, I would say that's one way of helping. But if somebody's got a small charity, small group of people, they're struggling, give me a call. I'll give them whatever support and help I can.
That's very kind. Thank you very much, Jagtar. And recently we had a very tragic incident not far from our studio here in Birmingham, in the centre of England, in South Birmingham, Solihull. Very tragically, three children lost their lives. It's devastating for the local community. Really sad and tragic events, and very distressing. This time of year, children have to take great care near ponds, lakes, rivers. They may freeze over, and it's very tempting for children to play on the frozen surface. What would you like to say about that?
I think it's an extreme rare occasion, and it's a tragedy when it does happen. And our condolences go from all of our Sikh community to the families who've lost loved ones. I think it's a preventable death, and that's the lesson from the fire service. If you remember, the fire service in the 1980s was purely a we go out, put out, and they changed it to prevention. So in West Midlands, which is where you are, we used to have 40 deaths a year. Through the prevention messages, there are less than 10 deaths a year. So every death is preventable, every drowning is preventable. Nationally, that prevention message in the fire service led from 800 deaths a year to less than 200. So what's my message on this? Over the last 10 years, 20 people have died through these kind of disasters. They're preventable. What can we learn? What lessons? I will send you some posters, so I hope that you can put the SIKH channel emblems on them and you can post them regularly. One, do not go onto ice. Just don't do it. It's not safe. If your dog or your pet goes on the ice and falls in, don't go after the dog or dial 999. We've got the equipment in the fire service, we've got the life belts, we can do the rescue for you. Carry a mobile phone with you if you're going in these areas where there's lakes and rivers, so that you can call for help if you need that. I think that's the simple message. In water safety, it's just we do get lots of water draining. You remember those disasters a few years back when some refugees were by the seaside. We lost a lot of lives. So water is an extremely dangerous area where we're losing lives. But common sense, being careful, and only going to safe spaces would be a good way. And I would invite Val, you and I, to maybe have a conversation with the Chief of West Midlands, who's the first black Chief Fire Officer to be appointed in this country. And maybe, like you've had this conversation with me, we have a conversation with him and also look at what his ambitions are about prevention around water safety, road traffic safety, fire safety, and get our community as safe as we possibly can.
That's tremendous. Thank you very much for that advice and that message of support for the communities who have suffered terribly with this tragic events, and they are preventable. And we want children and parents to take safety and prevent such tragic circumstances happening ever again. Thank you very much, Jagtar.
So I've just
What does it
reminded me
feel?
of just a final
Sorry.
point. This is, these painful memories come back to you sometimes, and you brought a painful memory back. It was this time of year that I went to my worst tragedy. It was in Northfield where 3 children died. They died in a fire where the parents had taken the doors off and were decorating the house. But my painful memory is not just of the deaths and the family. I went into the loft space to check that the fire had not spread into the loft space. Right now, I can see those presents that the families had bought for those children. Right now, the families of these children, whose young ones have died, who just went out to play, will be coming up to Christmas. Our thoughts and prayers must be with them. And whatever we can do as a SIKH channel, offers of condolence to those families, let's make sure that they know that we're there for them.
Thank you very much for that heartfelt message. And we echo that. We do ardas and offer our prayers for the families and the children who, in such tragic circumstances, lost their lives. Is very deeply saddening for all of us. finally, Jagtar, looking forward to the future, what are your plans? Have you got any current plans or future plans are you working on in the distance for 2023 or 24?
Well, I want my Asian Fire Service Association to continue to be the inspirational staff network that they are, and they will carry on doing that. I want us to continue to support Dennis Mark of Vinder Singh in the tremendous charity work they do in India. We've got a young, inspirational organisation called Apna NHS. Bow, let's lift them. Let's give them the opportunity to appear here, talk about mental health, talk about community health. You know, our great friend Gersh Randall was a good friend of mine. Let's help that to grow. I've got 2 more years to go in my chair role in Coventry. What the future holds, Vaiguru Manaya. So let's just see where life takes us. No good making too many big plans at 68, is it?
You're still very young at heart, and 68 is not very old. You've got many more years of seva to come. You've been an
Thank
inspiration
you.
for the community, a valuable member of the community. So many people pass their lives uh, working and sometimes earning great wealth and doing very well for themselves without doing anything for the community. But what you've done is you've attained a very high professional status yourself, and you've looked after your family and yourself very well. But more importantly, the seva and the amount of time and effort you've generously given back to the community is tremendous and very inspiring, and that's what makes life worthwhile. So thank you very much, Jagtar, a regular friend and contributor to SIKH Channel since our broadcast started in 2009. Thank you for sharing your journey, and we will keep in touch with you and see what next year brings for us.
Let's just call out 2 more people while we're just closing. It is an immense pride to me and the Sikh community that Gersh Randwar and Harjit Singh from the Fire Service were able to get the King to the Gurdwara opening of Luton. I mean, I'm sure other communities are looking, how do they do that? It's because of our compassion, it's because of our seva, it's because of all we do not discriminate against other faiths, and the way that that Gurdwara is set up with its community aims as well as its Sikh values and aims. So call out to all those people that were able to get the King to Luton. So thank you in particular to my close friends, SIKH Channel, Gert Rangwa and Harjit, and look forward to meeting up with you in the new year.
Thank you very much, Iqtar, and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on Community Talks.
Cheers, pal. Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.